Have you ever made a promise to yourself about changing, created an elaborate plan, felt energized for a few days, and then silently abandoned it? Perhaps you declared, "This is the year I'll transform my fitness." But that gym membership went unused and expired. Perhaps you planned to read more, purchased a stack of books, but they're now collecting dust. Or perhaps you've set the identical goal 5 years running, and each year concludes the same way, with disappointment and justifications. If that pattern resonates with you, if you're exhausted from grand promises and minimal progress, then this narrative will revolutionize how you think about objectives forever. Because there once was a man who attempted to overhaul his entire existence in 7 days and failed until he discovered a straightforward principle. You don't need to transform your entire life. You simply need to improve by 1%. Stay with me through the conclusion. In a vibrant city, in a modest apartment on the 7th floor, resided a 32-year-old accountant named David. David was bright, dedicated, and profoundly frustrated with himself. Not because he lacked drive, but because every time he attempted to better his life, he failed in precisely the same manner. On January 1st, David would awaken with determination burning in his chest. "This is my year," he'd declare. He'd compose an ambitious catalog. Exercise daily, minimum 1 hour. Read 50 pages each night before sleep. Study Spanish for 45 minutes. Rise at 5 a.m. Consume only nutritious food. Practice meditation 30 minutes each day. For 3 days, he'd accomplish everything. He'd feel unstoppable. His colleagues would inquire, "David, what's different?" He'd respond confidently, "I'm evolving into my best self." But by the 4th day, his muscles ached from the workouts. By the 5th day, exhaustion consumed him from the early rising. By the 6th day, he missed one practice, then another. By the 2nd week, he'd return to his previous patterns, feeling even worse than before. Not simply because he'd failed again, but because he'd reinforced to himself once more that transformation was impossible for him. His younger sister, Emma, would drop by and notice the unused exercise equipment, the unopened Spanish textbook, the neglected meditation cushion. She'd ask kindly, "David, why do you continuously do this? Why not begin with something smaller?" But David would dismiss it. "Emma, minor changes are meaningless. If I'm going to transform, I need to change completely. Everything or nothing." What David hadn't recognized was that his everything or nothing philosophy was precisely what trapped him. He'd attempted this approach 12 times across 6 years. 12 New Year's commitments, 12 failures, 12 cycles of optimism and embarrassment. He whispered to himself during late nights, staring at his mirror image. What if I'm simply not the type of person capable of change? One autumn evening, David received an invitation that made his stomach knot. His 10-year university reunion. He almost declined attendance, but something compelled him to enter that hotel ballroom carrying the burden of a decade of broken promises. And there he encountered them, his former classmates. Some had launched thriving businesses. Others had explored 30 countries. One friend had published a book. Another had completed 3 marathons. David stood in the corner gripping a glass of water, responding to the same question repeatedly. "So, David, what have you been doing?" He smiled weakly and responded, "Oh, clears throat, you know, working, keeping busy." But inside his thoughts screamed, "I've been attempting to change for 10 years, and I'm precisely where I began." Then he noticed Marcus. Marcus had been the most unmotivated student in their class, tardy to every lecture, barely passing exams, no visible ambition to anyone. But now Marcus appeared transformed. Healthy, assured, energized. David couldn't restrain himself. "Marcus, you look amazing. What happened?" Marcus smiled. "I began improving 1% every single day." David frowned. 1%? That's nothing. That wouldn't accomplish anything. Marcus's smile broadened. "That's precisely what I believed too, until someone revealed the mathematics to me." Before David could reply, Marcus extended him a business card. "There's someone I want you to meet. Coach Helen, she transformed my existence. If you're exhausted from feeling trapped, visit her. Mention I referred you." That night, David lay in bed, examining the card. Part of him wanted to discard it. Another empty hope, another letdown awaiting him. But a softer voice whispered, "What if this time is actually different?" The next morning, he placed the call. Coach Helen's office was nothing like David anticipated. No inspirational posters, no achievement slogans, just a simple desk, 2 chairs, and a whiteboard. Helen was a woman in her 50s with compassionate eyes and a peaceful presence. She listened as David explained his cycle. Ambitious goals, temporary success, unavoidable failure, devastating shame. When he concluded, she nodded thoughtfully. "David, you're not unmotivated. You're not fragile. You're simply employing the incorrect strategy." She approached the whiteboard and drew a simple chart. "Let me reveal something that will revolutionize how you perceive improvement forever." She wrote 1.01 to the power of 365 is equal to 37.80.99 to the power of 365 is equal to 0.03. David stared, puzzled. "I don't comprehend." Helen smiled. "If you improve 1% every single day for 1 year, you don't progress by 1%. You don't even progress by 365%. You progress by 3,700%. You become 37 times superior." She tapped the board. "But if you decline 1% each day, skipping workouts, eating poorly, wasting hours, you don't decline by 1%. You decline by 97%. You nearly vanish." David felt something transform in his thinking. The difference between who you are and who you could become isn't one massive leap. It's 365 tiny advances. Helen sat back down. "David, you keep attempting to run a marathon when you've never jogged around the block. Your objectives aren't the issue. Your method is." She pulled out a simple notebook. "Here's what I want you to do. Forget everything on your catalog except one practice, just one. What's the smallest version of the change you desire?" David thought, "I want to exercise." "Smaller." "I want to jog." "Smaller." David paused. "I want to put on running shoes." Helen smiled. "Perfect. For the next week, every morning, you will put on your running shoes. That's all. You don't have to run. You don't have to step outside. Just put on the shoes." David almost laughed. "That's absurd. That won't accomplish anything." Helen's expression became earnest. "David, you've been attempting to become a different person overnight. That's what you continuously fail. But identity transformation doesn't occur in one day. It occurs through repetition of tiny behaviors." She leaned forward. "You don't need to be the person who runs 5 miles. You need to become the person who puts on running shoes, because once you're that person, running becomes natural. 1 week, 7 days. Put on running shoes every morning. Nothing more. Can you do that?" David felt something unusual. Hope without burden. This objective wasn't intimidating. It was almost embarrassingly modest. "Yes," he said. "I can do that," Helen wrote in her notebook. Because small changes appear insignificant until they compound. That's when everything transforms. The next morning, David set his alarm. When it sounded, he didn't leap out of bed energized. He felt nothing. But he'd made a commitment. He put on his running shoes. Then he sat on the couch and drank coffee. That was day 1. Day 2, put on running shoes, sat on the couch. Day 3, put on running shoes. Walked to the entrance. Went back inside. His sister Emma visited on day 4. "David, are you going running?" "No," he said, lacing his shoes. "I'm just putting on my shoes." She looked puzzled, but David didn't explain. Day 5, put on running shoes, walked outside, stood on the sidewalk for 30 seconds, went back inside. On day 6, something unusual happened. David put on his shoes, walked outside, and his legs began moving. Not because he forced himself, but because standing motionless felt strange now. He jogged for 2 minutes, walked back, removed his shoes. He'd run. Week 2. Coach Helen asked, "How's it progressing?" "I've put on my shoes every day. Sometimes I run now. Not long, just a little." "Perfect," she said. "Don't add anything yet. Just maintain this one practice." Weeks passed. The pattern became automatic. Shoes on, door open, feet moving. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. 1 month in, David's coworker asked, "Are you a runner now?" David paused. Was he? He still only ran 15 minutes. That wasn't substantial. But then he realized he'd run 28 days consecutively. He'd never done anything for 28 days straight. "Yeah," he said, surprising himself. "I suppose I am." That's when Coach Helen introduced the second practice. You're a runner now. Your identity has transformed. What's the next 1%? David chose read for 10 minutes before sleep. Just 10 minutes. 1 page. That's all he managed. Then a third practice, Spanish for 5 minutes daily. Not 45, 5. 6 months later, David had run 180 days consecutively. Now completing 30 minutes daily. Read 15 books, 10 minutes every night accumulates. Completed 2 beginner Spanish courses. Added nutritious breakfast, another small practice. Started journaling 5 minutes daily. He wasn't doing everything. He was doing 5 small things consistently. His sister Emma visited again. She stopped in the doorway staring. "David, you look transformed." He smiled 1% different every day. "No," she said, "you look like a completely different individual." David checked the mirror. She was correct. But the transformation had been so gradual, he hadn't noticed it occurring. That's how transformation operates, invisible until suddenly. It's undeniable. 1 year after that painful reunion, David returned to the identical hotel ballroom. This time, people didn't ask, "What have you been doing?" They asked, "David, how did you accomplish it? You look incredible. What's your secret?" David smiled, remembering Marcus's words. "I improved 1% every day." Some people nodded politely, not comprehending. But a few, the ones who were exhausted from failing, leaned in closer. What does that actually mean? And David explained about Coach Helen, about the running shoes, about selecting one tiny practice, about identity transformation through repetition. One woman said, "But I want to change so much. How do I know where to begin?" David pulled out his notebook, a practice he'd learned from Helen. Begin with the smallest version of whatever you desire. If you want to write a book, write 1 sentence daily. If you want to get fit, put on workout clothes. If you want to learn guitar, pick it up for 2 minutes. That seems too small to matter. "That's what I believed," David said. "But ask yourself, would you rather do something small every day or something huge once and then never again?" My friend, David's story is your story. It's my story. It's every person who's ever desired to change but felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of the objective. Here's the truth that transforms everything. You don't have to overhaul your life in 1 day. You just have to improve by 1%. Just 1%. But you have to do it every single day. Remember these 3 principles. First, small practices compound. That 1% seems invisible today, but in 6 months, a year, you'll be unrecognizable. Second, identity defeats motivation. You don't need to run marathons. You need to become the person who puts on running shoes. The action follows the identity. Third, never break the chain. Missing 1 day cuts the compound effect. 2 days resets it. Consistency is everything. Clears throat, so here's your challenge. Starting today, select 1 practice, just 1. The smallest version of something you want to change. So small it feels almost embarrassing. Then do it every single day for 30 days. Don't expand it. Don't add more. Prove to yourself that you can maintain 1 tiny promise. Because the person who can maintain 1 promise can maintain any promise. And that 1% improvement in 1 year, you'll be 37 times superior. If this story inspired you to finally begin that change you've been postponing, give this video a like so more people can discover the 1% rule. Share it with someone who's trapped in the everything or nothing trap and drop a comment right now. What's your 1 practice? What's the 1% you're committing to today? Let's hold each other accountable. I'll be reading every single comment. Until next time, remember, you don't need to change your life overnight. You just need to improve 1% better than yesterday. If you enjoyed our video, please hit the subscribe button, give it a like, and drop a comment below. Your support helps us create more content like this. Thank you for watching.